My marriage loneliness had become a permanent resident, a silent guest at our dinner table. I never imagined the one to finally fill. That silence wouldn't be my husband but my son, and that our conversation would begin with a secret I kept from him and end with one he had kept from me. My name is Catherine. At 43, my life in the sun-drenched suburbs of Scottsdale, Arizona was a portrait of success. My husband Richard was a prosperous entrepreneur, a man who moved through the world with an air of unshakable purpose. His work was his foremost priority, a demanding mistress of incessant travel-late-night meetings, and a persistent, glowing reliance on the screens of his phone and computer. For years I had bolstered his profession, playing the part of the supportive wife, acknowledging the gravity of his obligations. But each time the door clicked shut behind him, or each time I saw him immersed in his digital world, from across the dinner table, I experienced an undeniable sense of emptiness, a void that our sprawling minimalist home only seemed to amplify. Liam, our son, was 21. He had consistently pursued his own brand of autonomy, a quiet rebellion against the gilded cage we could have so easily provided. After 2 years at university, studying a subject he had no passion for, opted to abandon his studies and concentrate on employment. He accepted a job at a local organic market, a world away from the corporate ladder his father expected him to climb. He labored, assiduously, his skin perpetually, sun-kissed, and frequently returned home for lunch, a silent ritual that I had come to cherish. That July, the Arizona heat was a physical entity, suffocating and enveloping, holding everything in a constricting grip. On a typical morning, Richard departed early, his mind already in a boardroom. 1,000 miles away, as the door clicked shut, the house's silence descended its vast open-plan spaces, magnifying my isolation. Liam was at the market, and wouldn't return until noon. The scorching sun emitted its unyielding rays, saturating the stone terrace with an oppressive heat. Seated by the picture window, I gazed outward at the shimmering air, engulfed in a familiar fog of sorrow. A little before noon, the sound of his car on the gravel driveway announced his arrival. He entered through the side doors, t-shirt adhering to the lean muscles of his back, his dark hair damp with perspiration. "It's unbearable out there, Mom," he remarked, depositing a small paper bag on the vast quartz island in the kitchen. Observing my son, I experienced a complex amalgamation of emotions: pride in his work ethic, a pang of sorrow for the future he'd discarded, and a deep maternal love that felt like the only solid thing in my life. He retrieved accolade bottle of water from their refrigerator and settled into a chair. The kitchen table. The house resumed its customary silence, interrupted solely by the whisper of the air conditioning and the gentle drip of condensation from the bottle onto the glass tabletop. We sat in that comfortable quiet, each absorbed in our own reflections. As the oppressive heat intensified that stifling afternoon, I resolved to take a cool shower to alleviate the agony of the heat. As I neared the upstairs landing, the sound of running water reached my ears. I took a few more steps toward the guest bathroom at the end of the hall and observed that the door was ajar, a faint light seeping through the gap. My gaze then fell upon Liam, oblivious to my presence beneath. The cascade of water. Despite being his mother, the sight before me elicited an uncontrollable racing of my heart, a tumultuous surge of conflicting emotions overwhelming me like an unstoppable wave. It wasn't a salacious thought, but a sudden shocking awareness. The boy I had raised, the child whose scraped knees I had bandaged, was gone. In his place stood a man, tall, lean, with the defined muscles of someone who engages in physical labor. Water streamed over his broad shoulders, tracing paths down his strong back. I remained paralyzed and unwilling, voyeur in a scene. I should not have witnessed the heat that engulfed me was no longer from the summer sun, but from something far more profound and enigmatic. My thoughts were a whirlwind of confusion and a strange, unidentifiable flicker of something else. I knew I had to escape to erase the image from my mind. I stepped back, my movement clumsy, and inadvertently collided with a stray pool noodle leaning against the wall. It descended to the tiled floor with a hollow, resounding clap that disturbed. The tranquility of the hallway, panic seized me as the sound reverberated. I hurried away nearly, sprinting to the living room. My hand pressed to my chest. My respiration. Hollow, I sat on the edge of the couch, attempting to compose myself. The incessant echo of the fall reverberated, in my mind instilling a dread that Liam could harbor suspicions. A few moments later, the sound of the shower ceased. The silence that followed was agonizing. Then I heard his door click, shut down the hall. I let out a breath. I didn't realize I had been holding, but my thoughts continually reverted to that moment, a previously concealed aspect of my own being, a dormant awareness of him as something other than my son had been abruptly revealed. I was still sitting, there, my head in my hands, when his voice disrupted the silence. "Mom, did you hear that noise?" His tone was nonchalant, pulling me from my internal distress. "Yes," I responded, my own voice wavering slightly. I knocked something over in the hall. "Sorry." I forced a smile as he appeared in the doorway, his hair damp, dressed in a clean shirt and shorts. He shrugged, his expression unconcerned. "No worries." He then proceeded to his room, shutting the door behind him, and the house became quiet again. My heart, however, persisted restless. The oppressive heat and the persistent searing recollection had ensnared my mind. "What is happening to you, Catherine?" I felt overwhelmed by a blend of terror and remorse. Despite my efforts, something within me had changed, and I knew with a sinking feeling that I could no longer perceive my son in the same way. The next day began like any other. Richard sat at the breakfast table, absorbed in his phone, his thumb flicking across the screen as he addressed emails and messages, entirely unaware of the turmoil raging within me. I arranged the plates quietly, my hands moving on autopilot, maintaining a composed facade. "Have to fly out to Singapore this afternoon," he announced without looking up. "Might be a week, maybe longer." The old familiar void reemerged. Despite my acclimatization to his demanding schedule, his absence consistently cast a pall of loneliness over the house. "Don't worry, I'll take care of everything,"